Hello, this is the 10 o'clock news with Roleplay Roundup. If you are in Eastern America, it is the 5 p.m. news. Cutting across to my co-caster, Laugh Love Lindy. Hello, Lindy.
Hello, Charlie. It is lovely to be a part of the news today. How have you been?
I have been very well, thank you, Lindy. I enjoyed the premiere last night of LFM's new show, Veiled Alliance. That was super cool, DM'd by Jonathan Fry. If you didn't check that out this week, go and check out the VOD and then go and check out that show. I believe it's 6 p.m. No, it's not. It's 8 p.m. I think Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.
Yes.
Something like that. We'll put the details in chat. I meant to look it up.
It is. That is the time. It is.
But very
8 p.m.
show.
Eastern.
Enjoyed that very much. So this is the start of the show. Welcome back to Roleplay Roundup, first of our season this season, and this is part of the show where we just talk about stuff that we like and that we want to shout out that's going on at the moment. I want to shout out that Megan Cross has turned Session 0 into real cards. That's pretty cool. I have a deck of them right here. So if you are looking for character prompts and ideas, whether you're developing a character you already have, or you want to make a new one, this is a great and handy way of having them in a nice transportable form. So check those out. We did play a whole session of Session 0 with Susanna Grace on Roleplay Roundup last season. So that's that I am very excited about. Also, right when I bring Janet in a few minutes when we do that, I will be giving away a PDF copy of The Strange New Worlds Star Trek Adventures supplement. I have a physical copy here, which is going to be the copy I'm going to give away on Friday during the premiere of that show, which will be 3 p.m. Eastern. I loved the one-shot we did with Strange New Worlds. This is the volume 2, in fact. Basically, you can take any of the adventures and change them into original series. You can change them to Deep Space Nine setting, but there's, standalone adventures that you can play through, and it's using the Modiphius 2D20 system, which is a really fun system, and my favorite mechanic in it is the threat and momentum, where you can keep snowballing your actions, but in exchange for that, the DM keeps escalating things a little bit more. It's crafty, it's cool, and I am so excited to boldly go with that brand new crew aboard the USS Initiative. What a great name.
Ooh, I do like that name. That is a very good ship name.
No, Susie, you're not Susie. No, Lindy, you've been aboard a ship, I believe, infested with aliens.
Oh my gosh, I have seen so many aliens because we have producer Trav as my DM in the Aliens RPG, which is phenomenal. Right now we're trapped on a jungle planet surrounded by pretty much any alien you can think of. We've got snake aliens, gorilla aliens, people aliens, and predators. So it's a lot. I don't think our rate of living's gonna go very well, but that's aliens anyway. It's like Call of Cthulhu. Super deadly.
I think Free League did a really good job with building an interesting and dynamic spiral to this game. You know you're gonna lose, it's just how big are you gonna lose and when.
And when. Yeah.
We did a one-shot with Travis during our Judge Dredd campaign, because we had been sick for a day, I believe, and we did a raid on Area 51. 52? 51? Whatever area 51. It is.
Area 51. Got it. Yeah.
Is there a 52? Oh, I have questions.
If there is, it's super secret, and maybe there is. I don't know. I haven't heard of it before. If
you want to check us out in action using Aliens, the Free League game, you can check that out over on YouTube. It's Encounter Roleplay for Hours. And Lindy, where can we find the one that Travis is running for you?
Oh, it's a monthly campaign. It's still ongoing. I think we just had our episode 5 this past month. You can find it. I believe the VODs are still on my Twitch, Laugh Love Lindy, and on my YouTube at Laugh Love Lindy, because I got that branding down.
Branding. On the subject of branding, this season you're playing a lot of vampires on the channel.
I am playing so many vampires. I did not think I was going to get this much use out of my fangs, but here we are. I play Ulrika, a Viking vampire gangrel, in Vampire the Masquerade every Tuesday. Now on Thursdays in the Unhallowed Metropolis system, I play a Dampier, which is technically only half vampire, but my dad's Dracula, so I basically act full vampire, so I get to experience the joy of fangs twice a week. And it's a lot of fun.
Speaking of the joy of fangs, there is a really cool game on itch by Hive Mind. In fact, there's two games. One is called Hunger and one is called Thirst. And I want to talk about those because I played them. And if you don't know, I love journaling. So I played them in my journal and I stuck in pictures. And basically, the idea of Hunger is you are a vampire and it's all about the act of feeding and your relationship with your victim. And there's a gambling element to it whereby you may go just too far.
Ooh.
And then the flip side of this is Thirst, where you are the human victim. I use victim loosely. You may be very consensual and quite enjoying of the act of being fed from. But you play the other side of things and you discuss, you know, the experience of being fed from. And I really love these games. I think they're either pay what you want or $3-ish.
$3.
I don't remember. Highly recommend checking those out
on itch. It's a suggested price of $3, but it is pay what you want.
They were super fun. Each one took me about 10-20 minutes to play. So it's great if you're traveling, you just print out the little rule set. They do use cards, I believe, if I remember correctly. It's a kind of blackjack kind of thing. You're aiming for 21-ish. Okay. So
well, I have a very long road trip ahead of me, so I might get that for my 14-hour car ride coming up tomorrow. So
wow, that's a long car ride.
It's a long drive.
It's a long drive. If everyone stays till the end, we will be doing a giveaway of the Fall of London supplement PDF as well, because Modifius are awesome, and I messaged them, I was like, can we give away some PDFs and Roleplay Roundup, because we like games, and Sam was like, yes you can. So that's what
and that's the game we're playing on Tuesdays, is the Fall of London. So
sure is.
It's good.
I'm just taking a look at our little list of recommendations, and all I can see, like, highlighted in bold for me is the game that James Intricasso and Kayla are releasing on Valentine's Day. I'm super excited for Valentine's Day for a number of reasons we will discuss shortly, but let's talk about this game. So this is a mini supplement, as James has described it to me, called Hagmalgams. Hagmalgams, there we go, that's how we'll say it. So there are 6 new creatures that are half hag, half celestial. You get a hagacorn, a hagasus, a hagrim, a haggyfunt, a hagbear, and a hagtopus.
My favorite.
Also is included. I know, right? I'm about the hagtopus.
I love the hagtopus. I've seen the art for it already, because Kayla has been teasing the art for these hags, and the hagtopus just has already stolen my heart.
And also included is the template, so you can create angelic creatures. I love when creators give you, you know, some ideas, and then they're like, and here's the other information if you want to run with this. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be running with it. So Hagamalgams are 2 souls living in one body. They are torn between their desire to do evil hag stuff and good celestial deeds. At any given time, the hag or celestial is in control of the creature, and that can change on a dime. And this has all been framed around hag dating. This is the thing that got my attention, because having played with you a lot, Lindy, I know that you view every game as a potential dating sim.
Well, yes.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, fairly fair, yes. I mean, when is it not?
I was going to ask you which hag do you want to date, but I already know.
The hagtopus. The hagtopus. You could say we could have a hag romance.
Hagmalgams. Hagmalgams. Oh, it works.
Caught in a hag romance. See, there you go. You're welcome, everyone, for that song being stuck in your head for the rest of the day.
Our gift to you. This will come out on Friday. They don't currently have a link for it, but when it goes up on, I think it's going to be Drive-Thru-RPG, or it might be GM's Guild, there will be a link on worldbuilderblog.com, which I believe is James's blog. And there's a whole host of other really cool things on there, from GM's advice to content that is well worth checking out. Speaking of checking out, DM's Guild, thank you, Lindy. Speaking of checking out and Valentine's Day, as I mentioned, we have Star Trek Adventures coming up. the USS Initiative boldly sets forth with its session 0 at 3 p.m. Eastern. But right after that show, at 6 p.m. Eastern, we have The Haunting of Seawall Orphanage, which I am unbelievably excited to unleash. This is mine and Jonathan Fry's horrific love child. I messaged Don and I was like, I need you to run a game on Encounter Roleplay. And he was like, all right, what kind of game do you want? I was like, a horrible one. And it kind of escalated from there. We looked for a little while at 10 Candles as a framework, but as we discussed more and more what we wanted, the game morphed, mutated, corrupted, and it has become our very own exclusive little horror game. We have a killer cast for it, and it's going to be kind of a marriage between a series of unfortunate events, The Haunting of Hill House, with a little bit of Stephen King wedged in there for additional shudders up and down spines. Very, very excited about that. We played the trailer for that right before we came live. The trailer is going to be previewing all over our Twitter for the next couple of days because I'm in love with it. Travis did a great job. And the thing that this is kind of segueing me to is I want to talk today about world building and session zeros. And I couldn't think of anyone better to talk to about world building than, of course, Janet from World Anvil. World Anvil, if you don't know, are going to be our sponsors here on Encounter Roleplay for this season. So we will be giving you access like we never have before to our campaigns, to characters, NPCs, the world, and we're going to be building up for each of our campaigns a world anvil that you can browse in your free time and perhaps even collaborate and add to. I just opened totally the wrong window.
That's fine.
Point to me.
Let's
why
bring
don't we
Janet in? Yeah.
Segue the wonderful Janet.
Hi, Janet.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. Wait, you can't hear me, right?
Yes,
Yes,
we can hear you.
And
You're
great
to go.
to have you here. So as I was saying, session zeros, world building, world anvil. You are a world builder. That's a fair description of what you do. A prolific writer as well. And that's how Dimitri birthed World Anvil, correct?
Yeah, that's
the story.
Right. Yeah, no, the story is sickeningly adorable, so forgive me, okay, I'm sorry. And it's right around Valentine's Day as well, so I really shouldn't tell the story. But yeah, basically, I was trying to write epic fantasy, and epic fantasy is really, really big, really heavy on the world building. And so I would get to a certain point in my story, and then I'd be like, well, I just can't control the world building anymore. I would write on scraps of paper, I would write it in notebooks, and then I would lose them. It was a friggin' nightmare. And then Dimitri was like, oh, I will make you something. And that's where World Anvil came from. That was the basis of it. It was just, you know, he is a GM, and now I as a GM need stuff to keep our world building together. We do our campaigns together, we use our stuff all the friggin' time, unless we put it on World Anvil. And that's why it exists. So you don't lose your stuff, so you have it whenever you need it for writers as well. You know. That's what we do.
So when you start building a world, how do you start building? Are you a visual person? Do you make playlists? Or do you just open up a blank document and just start typing in information?
So, funnily enough, I made a YouTube video about this. I start with a bunch of questions. So I start with motivation, I start with genre and tone, I start with what I want from the world, and that's really where I start, because if I'm not answering those questions, I know that the world project is just going to fizzle out somehow. Like, we've all started worlds, and then we get a little bit of the way in, and we're like, oh, actually, I'm not really feeling this. So that's why I start that way. So I want to make sure that, you know, if I'm building it, I'm in it for the long haul. World building, you know, you can get really deep into it. So I want to make sure that work is going to the right place. So yeah, and then I start to draw lines between, you know, my tone and my genre. So if I want it to be like dark and gritty, but my genre is superhero fantasy, then I can start drawing lines between that, figuring out how I want to do that. Or if my tone is like unicorns, but my theme is Middle Ages, again, like I can start drawing lines between that and figuring out where the nexuses are, and then I've got the basis for a really good world that's going to tick all my boxes. And then I do a little bit of top-down sketching, and then I do plot. And then the world building just kind of fits into that. I'm sorry, I feel like I should have a much more succinct answer, but the reason I do it that exactly, and that is why I do it that way. Is exactly for that reason. It is a process. You want to make sure that you're taking the right little stepping stones all the way along, so that you don't fall in the water and get world builder's disease, because nobody wants world builder's disease, right?
I've only just heard of it, and I do not want it.
Is it contagious?
Nobody wants
really hope not.
WBD.
Anyone who's read Tolkien will have flirted with world builder's disease. He's like patient zero. So it's like world building without intention, world building without meaning to, world building just compulsively, right? When you end up documenting, I don't know, all the different types of flowers in a meadow, and it's not actually serving your purpose, that's world builder's disease. And that's why I take all these steps. It's so I don't end up, building stuff I don't need, because I can always do that later.
And I think this for me ties into how I approach session zeros as well, as I go into them with a set of questions for my players. Lindy's been a player on one of my games and knows I turn up with questions, I don't turn up with answers. And I think it avoids you preparing a whole ton of things that you end up not needing or end up not being what your group ends up being interested in. So this ties into session zeros for me and how I would suggest approaching them. Lindy, how do you approach session zeros?
How I approach session zeros is I always give my players like a little primer of just the basic, like most generic gist. Like, I'm going to be running a Call of Cthulhu one-shot this weekend, but it's got a primer for it. I'm like, you guys are in an old mining town in 1921. How are you related to some of the people here? So I ask them a lot of questions as well, because I want them to feel connected to the game and the world as well, rather than me just dumping them with way too much information. And I am not a great planner, so when I do think of something, I've got a bajillion post-it notes just outlining my monitors. Like, it's very Rainbow-esque in here, because I'll think of something and I'll write it down, post it on my monitor for later. So I should probably get on World Anvil, because then I could just post a note on there.
And Janet, for people who already kind of have a campaign in motion, or they've already begun work on it, how would you suggest they start moving that into World Anvil? Where do you start when you open up World Anvil?
That's a great question, and I would always recommend build from big to small, and start with your big articles, but don't feel you need to add more than you need to. I have loads of articles on World Anvil that are literally stubs, and I need those as reminders. Like, I create a thing and I need a reminder of what the thing is, but if I don't need more than a paragraph, I don't write more than a paragraph. If I don't need more than 6 words, I don't write more than 6 words. It's not necessary. So I would start with the big things like organizations, regions, as much as you know, stick those in. Then get down to the nitty-gritty. And again, I would always recommend upload your maps, upload your images. You will lose them if you keep them on your desktop. My God, how many times has that happened to me? Oh my God. Put them on World Anvil, they will be there forever. Our servers are excellent. We have, professional quality integrity servers. Your stuff is just going to be there for you, and that is what you need. And then you can just search what you want. I would also add a caveat to that. If you have handwritten notes, voice-to-text software is your friend. Go use it. It loves you. It's there to serve you. Google Docs has a free one. It is adequate. I'm sure there are fantastic.
It's pretty good for free. The Google Docs one works surprisingly well. I've used it for things before.
It's better with American accents than with British accents. So when I use it, I have to put on a cheesy fake American accent. And then it works better. But yeah, with British accents, it gets terribly confused. But yeah, no, it's your friend. It'll help you. Go use it.
funnily enough, we've been looking at caption software for Encounter Roleplay, kind of to incorporate that into streams to improve accessibility. But we're having a similar issue with accents, and because a lot of us do exceptionally silly voices, it is utter gibberish and doesn't
I've
really
never done one
anything.
of those before.
No, never. But speaking of silly voices, we do silly voices when we're playing vampires, and if you like playing vampires and doing silly voices, Fall of London is now being given away in chat! !Loot! If you would like to enter for that giveaway. I just started working on the Crown Lands World Anvil, and I opened up an article and I just clicked prose, so I could just put in the information as I wanted it. But you have so many options, from full almost character sheets to your timeline, and I had from a little bird that you're getting family trees, which I am very excited about.
Yeah,
so good for Game of Thrones games.
Yeah, it's going to help a lot of people. So honestly, it's going to be good for vampire games as well, because we're going to be doing Bloodlines.
Yep.
So basically, we are, I don't know if you know this, we're still in beta, so we're still working on it. Me and Demetrius, we are the team of World Anvil. Demetrius is my husband. He's currently almost asleep because he gets up at 5 in the morning. I'm putting up because he's upstairs, but I realize the nice people on the stream don't know that. They just think he's on my head. What was I saying? Yes, I'm also quite sleepy, sorry. Yeah, so we are community-led in our development. We ask our guild members and our community what they want when we are creating a new development procedure, essentially. And overwhelmingly, our community asked for family trees. So we were like, all right, let's do it. They're really hard to do. So, because of course the information just gets more and more and more until it becomes completely untreatable. So we've had to figure out some clever ways around. We have. I'm so psyched about it. So you'll be able to track family trees to 5 generations either side, cycle through spouses, see siblings as well. And you'll also be able to track bloodlines of a single person or a couple, which means if you're doing things with hereditary diseases, if you're doing things with bloodlines, if you're doing things with, you know, who's inheriting what and what else, you'll be able to track all of that stuff, which is awesome, because that's the kind of stuff that is sometimes really hard to keep track of, you know?
For sure.
So I know that you are someone who tracks everything, having had a number of conversations with you and seeing the wonderful World Anvil. Which feature do you think is most often overlooked, and maybe people should think about using more on World Anvil?
I kind of have 2 answers for that. The first is the purple button. So there's a little button in the bottom right hand of the interface. When you click on that, from anywhere you are in the website, you can create an article, like a quick creation article. Now that sounds like nothing, except that when you're writing an article and you're like, oh yeah, I want them to have a special sword. And you're like, it's going to be called Grimnir. And you're like, crap, I should make an article about Grimnir. You just go to the purple button at the bottom and make your quick article about Grimnir, and then you can link it in as you're writing. That is freaking gold as a workflow for world builders, because we don't think linear. We don't start at the beginning of the story and get to the end of the story. As we build, we make connections and we create things in our world. So that is exactly what you need, and that is absolutely such an innocent looking little feature. And it's saved my butt so many times when I've been world building. It's just makes the whole process so streamlined. And then the other one is interactive maps. Like, everyone's excited about them, but I can't say enough. Being able to give your players a map where the pins that you want them to see are visible and the pins that you don't want them to see are not visible, and then they can click on those pins and learn more about the world. That is so much better than giving them a massive printed out document being like, boom, here is the world, read it before next week. And they don't, and then they don't know anything. It's a much easier way to absorb geographical information. It's an easier way to absorb information about dungeons, and you can use that for images as well. So you can, instead of uploading a map, you can upload an image. So say you want to upload an image of a monster, you can then drop pins to be like, this is the tail, it's very spiky, it does 1d6 spike damage. These are the claws, they are very stabby and venomous, they do 1d8 stabbing damage and also give you poison. You can use it for images, you can use it for maps. It's such a beautiful way to be able to absorb information. And especially for me, I'm dyslexic, so reading huge long swathes of text just boggles my brain. It's it's bite-sized. It's delicious.
So you have a number of tiers on World Anvil, which I really like. It's kind of like, are you a player? Are you a GM? Are you writing an epic fantasy book? Let me talk to you. Here's packages, which is something I appreciate, because I find when someone tries to sell me a product as one size fits all, I get really skeptical. But that's not how you've approached it. How would you kind of describe your various packages, tiers? So people understand better, you know, which one might be for them.
So there's two things you're talking about there. The one is when you go into the website, there is, Dimitri will tell me off for calling it a website. I'm supposed to call it a platform. It is a website. That's basically what it is. Yes. So when you go in, it asks you questions. It says, are you a TTRPG player? Are you a game master? Are you a writer? And based on those questions, it will take away the features that you don't need. Now, it does this with all accounts. It does this with free accounts and paid accounts and everything. And the reason it does this is because World Anvil is a big old bag of features. And if you don't need them, it's easier not to see them. It just slims down the interface. You can always turn them back on by going to account details. It's really easy. You just go and click a button and they come back. But yeah, basically just we do that so that writers don't need to see stat blocks, so that players don't need to, you know, learn about how to world build, because often players don't want to world build. They just want to have a character sheet and a character manager and use that bit of the website. And the other bit that you were talking about was the tiered payment levels. Is that what you meant?
Oh, I think she
Yes,
froze for a
as I found my
second, but
mute
yes,
button.
I think that is what she meant.
I think we've got a wee bit of lag. I hope it's not me. Sorry.
No, it's you're good.
Okay. So yeah, and basically what we did is we will always keep a free version, because you know what? I've been a student. Many of us been students. It's hard to pay for things as students, and therefore we have a free version that will always be free. We also have tiered versions that have, you know, more features as you go up the tiers. And the reason we do that is the same thing. We want to make it affordable. And if you can't afford the Grand Master, which, you know, gives you extra co-authors and loads of space and some stat block features that writers, for example, aren't going to find useful, then you don't need to pay for that. You can pay for the less expensive membership, get fewer features, but still be able to use the basic toolset. We want to make it accessible. We want to help people build their worlds, because it's what we're really passionate about. If you haven't noticed, by the way, I'm talking about world building. It's kind of my life right now. So yeah, and that's why we do it like that. So the easiest way to figure out which tier is for you is to go to the pricing page and just literally read through the features. And we prorate upgrades as well. So if you buy a journeyman tier, that's the cheapest tier, and then you want to upgrade, you can upgrade just by paying the difference. You don't pay anything extra. We wouldn't do that. That's crappy. So you just pay for the upgrade to the level that you want for the time left on that membership. And that's how it works.
Awesome.
So can you tell us, Janet, what is the most recent thing you've been world building?
Oh,
What's the current project?
I haven't told anyone about this.
Don't worry, we're all friends here.
We're all friends here. I am world building for a new novella series that I'm writing, and I'm also world building for a little game that I run with Dimitri and a couple of friends just on the DL. So the game is quite not very interesting. Honestly, it's a world that I started as a test world in World Anvil. So when I was making tutorial videos and this kind of thing, I could use the articles from it to show off the World Anvil features. And then I got super into it, and it became my D&D world as well. So when I'm doing showcasing of features and this kind of thing, occasionally you'll see nonsense from my world in the background. Oh yeah. But yeah, the other world is 18th century fantasy mystery. That sounds really crazy, but bear with me. Like, what if Spider-Woman lived in the 18th century and solved crime? But the crime was supernatural crime. And that's what I'm writing right now.
So like noir Spider-Man, but a little earlier?
Like 18th century Spider-Man. So like,
yes.
You know, before Jane Austen.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
So like Marie Antoinette, but Spider-Man. That's actually the best way to describe it.
I'm down. I'd play that game. In a heartbeat.
I'm writing it right now, but actually it's a setting that would make an amazing game. I don't know if you know this, but I used to be an opera singer before I was a this thing that I am now that has no name. My specialism was 18th century music, so I'm really into the era. I really love it. There's crazy stuff happening in the 18th century. They call it the long century because literally so much crap happened that when you're reading through the history books, you're like, how is this all 100 years? So yeah, it's that's what I'm building. That's what I'm building right now.
That's
Lindy,
exciting.
are you building any new worlds at the moment, or working on any that you've launched recently?
So, a lot of the campaigns that I've run have been from a book or like a setting or a guide or something, but I do have a homebrew world that I made in high school that has yet to be put out there. I'd like to get it out there one day. I just have to sit down and organize it and make it better and put it out there. But I have ideas for it. I just need to actually suck it up and write it down.
You could do it. I believe in you.
But yeah, it's very medieval, classic, slightly dark fantasy. Very low magic though. Magic isn't really much of a thing in that setting though. So I'd be curious to I have a few ideas of what system might work for it. It could actually probably work pretty well with the Unhallowed Metropolis like mechanics, just less zombies. But otherwise, the mechanics would probably work fairly well for it. But yeah, that's just a little thing I haven't put. It's on the back burner, like the side back burner, because I've got so many other things I'm working on. There's so many systems to try and play, and things to do, and get addicted to, and that kind of thing. But maybe I'll try.
A note taker, Lindy, when we play. I am sure we talked about this before. But you are. How do you normally organize your notes? Because this is something that always fascinates me: is how different people.
Oh, I realized I picked up the notebook that blurs out with the green screen. So I'm a big fan of pen and paper notes. I find like I have a hard time typing during a game when I'm playing, but it's super easy for me to scribble and listen while I'm paying attention and still talking, interacting. My hand can be here writing my chicken scratch in my books. So I have so many notebooks. So many notebooks here for all of my notes. This one here actually has many campaigns in it. We've got The Witcher, Crimson Ash. We have Invisible Sun. We have Tales from a Hollow World. And I think my Dragon Age game is in here too. So lots of sticky notes and dividers. Lots of notebooks. That's typically how I take notes. And I try to take each of my notes in character. So if I have a character who's very detail-oriented, I am writing almost the whole session. But if I'm playing a character like Nova and May Black Roses Bloom, I have maybe a page of notes from the entire campaign. She's just so wee. So it really depends on the game, but I am a note taker, and if I'm playing a character who doesn't take notes, it's a bit of a struggle for me. I'm like, don't write this down. They wouldn't remember it. Don't write it down. So that's my method.
That suggestion of voice to notes. That's I get, because I am a physical note taker, because it helps me process names.
But I would love to go Control F and then find. I'd love to be able to search through my notes, because I'm always like, hold on, I know I wrote it down.
It's in here somewhere. It's in here. Then you realize all you've actually written is "sexy goblins?" ? Not the note I was looking for.
I actually feel like such a nerd because I take my notes in third person, but then I rewrite them as POV character journals.
Okay.
I just take 25 minutes after the session and sit down and write out the note. Like I write them in. I hate to be that person, but I write them in World Anvil because there's a notebook in there. And it looks like one note. So essentially, you just have a notebook that is for the session, and then you have pages that are for the session, like session by session. And then I can just copy that and paste it into a character journal and write it up into prose from the character's perspective. So what that means is not only have I just played an awesome campaign, but by the time I get to the end of it, I have basically a literary journal in that character's voice. I find it so helpful for developing character voice. There's nothing worse for me than I get to session 2 and I'm still like, who is this person that I'm trying to inhabit? You know, like, so I love this process of writing in character voice.
Yes,
really helps me.
I feel that in my soul. Also, when you're playing in like up to 15 campaigns at a time, which I'm not doing right now, it helps to keep them
proud of you, Lindy.
Thank you. I'm proud of myself too.
Janet was talking about world builders disease. Lindy and I and a number of others have just can't say no to campaigns disease.
Yes, yes. I completely agree.
Oh man, you know what? I'm jealous since I started doing this for a living. Suddenly, I don't have time to play anymore. It's crazy. So yeah, no, I think they're the good.
I just look at my schedule. I go, when am I not in another game, eating or sleeping? Yes, I have space for this. Oh, 6 a.m. Sure. I can
Wow,
play that.
you are hardcore. I love that.
That's not even an exaggeration. That's truthful. I know Lindy is in a 6 a.m.
game. And I'm never awake before like 10. So that's, yeah. I'm dedicated, yo.
Yeah.
So between
Just
the notes and the time zones and getting a campaign organized and finding time and actually committing to playing a game, we all like session zeros. I think that's obvious. What is something that's stuck out to you about a session zero that you've been in and you thought, that's great, I really like that, and you've stolen it for your own? Or something you've done in a session zero as an experiment that really worked out? What about you, Lindy?
I really like Will's Session Zeros where we play Never Have I Ever, because that's a really fun way to be like, oh, I didn't think about this. Has my character ever been arrested, or has my character ever been in love? It's just, and you can see the rest of the group too, and sometimes you can be like, oh, I did that too. You know, maybe that's a connection between us. So I really like the Never Have I Ever in Session Zeros. I'm definitely stealing that for my next one.
So
what about you, Janet?
Sorry. This is something that I have done, and as a player and as a GM, is before we do group session zero, I do solo session zeros. And in those solo session zeros, I do world building with the characters. So as we build out their families, and again, you wouldn't do this for a one-shot, but if you're doing a campaign, it's really useful. I build out like their families, their education, their life experiences. I make sure those places are on the map and they know where they are. And I encourage them to add, for example, 3 NPCs who were impactful in their lives. Because what does that do? That gives you fodder to torture them later. GMs love torturing their players. It's great. Makes for great stories. So I make them give me 3 NPCs, and they come up with a name, and they send me a picture, and they give me just a tiny sentence about what they're like, or who they are, or why they were impactful in their lives. And then I go away and I fold this information into my world building. So I make sure that they know on the map where their home city is, they know the places they've been, they know 3 people in the world already who are connections, who they know who they look like, and they know a little bit about them. And then by the time we get to the first session, these people know who they are a little bit with regard to the world, which means they can start to interact like people from the world. And I friggin' love that, because I'm all about that immersion. So yeah, that's what I would say is solo session zeros. You can just do them over a video call. You don't have to do them in person. But they're so effective at getting your players engaged with your campaign world, because there's nothing worse than players who rock up to session 1 and they're like, oh, where are we? What are we doing? Okay, yeah, okay, well, yeah, okay, I guess I'm an orc then. And they don't have that sense of engagement with the place, which means that they don't care about what happened in the place. And the place is where all the plot hooks come from, right? So they have to care. So yeah, that's why I like those.
My least favorite question as a GM is, do I know this? And I'm like, you tell me, do you know this? And sometimes it is one of those role things to go and check a memory test or a history test if it's something obscure. But I hate the feeling as a player of being so insecure that I just don't know, and so I don't want to interact because I'm panicked, and you know, it's the GM's precious thing, they have all the answers. So I try and avoid that, and what I've done is I like doing the connections thing too. Something I think I discovered it through looking at Vampire Masquerade, because they have touchstones in that game. So I stole that. And then I played A Song of Ice and Fire. I love their house building system. I've stolen that. And this is something I picked up kind of from Grant Ellis, amongst other people that I've played with, which is if you find something you like in a system or a game that helps you, steal it and put it in whatever game you're playing.
Yep. I've stolen luck checks from Call of Cthulhu.
Nice.
I 100% would put that in a D&D 5e campaign.
Oh, I do. My players be like, is this in the room? I'm like, roll me a D100, let's see. And they're like, roll low, roll low, roll low. So sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I just love it.
But extending that, I would do the 3 connections, and then what I then do is I'll look at the map and I'll give them like 3 or 4 what I would call rumors, things that they believe to be true or that they've heard. Because then they've got information and it's just their information, and I've built it from their perspective. If they're an academic who likes books, they know where the great library is in the world. Of course they do. And so I like doing that thing to again ground them, and then during a session I'm one of these GMs. I like to ask players, you tell me what his name is, you tell me 4 things about this guy that's walking up towards you, because you're right, it's if you're immersed, it's because you're sharing and collaborating. And I think the thing about a TTRPG is it's not a book, not one person is writing it, and you're all in this together, and it helps me understand what other people at the table are interested in. If they want to explore themes of family, I find that out because they make 3 family connections.
Yeah.
If they want to explore, themes about being alone, they'll come up with 3 connections that are far away from them. 3 things of, I knew this person once, but I don't know what happened to them. And it's such a great way of finding out expectations and interests without putting the questions straight in front of people. But simultaneously, I say, ask your players what they expect from a game. Or if you're a player, ask the GM what they expect the game to be, because...
And sometimes, in that same vein, a player may not realize that's what they're wanting to explore, in the front lobe of their brain, but in the background, they're like, yeah, these are my family connections, and so they might not say, oh yeah, I want a game where I explore my family stuff. They'll just be like, yeah, da-da-da-da-da, and they'll just forget it because they wrote it down, and they've already kind of dealt with it, so it's a good way to subtly see what your players want to.
Yeah. Although I have to say, outright asking them is like Charlie suggested, is
yes,
super important. I am
do both.
Dimitri and I are very game incompatible. Dimitri wants to explore and build things, and I want to fight things and have personal experiences. So we like very different kinds of games, but we only figured that out after fighting like 100 times about what kind of game we wanted to play. We just asked each other, So yeah, there's something in there.
And I think the thing is even if you discover your game incompatible, once you know what the other person wants, it then becomes exciting, I think, to facilitate that person getting the little things they want. And it doesn't become, oh, we shouldn't play together because you want to do this and I want to do this. It becomes, let's play together so we can do that and this.
Yeah, definitely. But like the knowledge is key, once you know, anything is possible.
Knowing is half the battle.
On Encounter Roleplay, we play a lot of kind of dark and horror-based games because it's what we like and what we enjoy. But obviously that comes with some potentially tricky ground because, people have different expectations of what horror is and also different levels of comfort with certain subjects. And it ties into, safety tools and lines of veils. But, if you go in with the expectation, we're playing Game of Thrones. We expect a certain level of violence in this game. We expect, certain things. But this one thing, for example, sexual violence is not going to happen. That's a standard on Encounter Roleplay. Then, you can establish that and you can cross it off the list and move on. But also, the other flip of it is if someone, for example, has a phobia of spiders and they find out in session 0 the game is all about Lolth, that game's probably not going to be for them. And it's, it's on you, I think, to protect yourself and accept perhaps some games aren't going to be for you. And then it's on you to tell other people this game's probably not going to be for me. But, once that information's there, you can deal with it. Either the group could decide, oh, we're not going to play the Lolth campaign then, or it'll be, we're going to play the Lolth campaign, but after that we'll hit you up and we'll do, something else that you might be interested in, and you can reach that compromise. If anyone has any questions in chat, by the way, please do post them. I'm keeping an eye on chat. We've done our giveaway for Fall of London. Congratulations to Deception Check, that PDF will be coming to you. Please drop me a message with your email so I can get that sent over. I managed to mess it up and do it in reverse, so we will be giving Star Trek Adventures away at the end of Roleplay Roundup. Putting the lol back in Lolth. Bless her many cotton socks. That's all I have to say. Or would they be silk socks? Because she is a spider.
Yeah.
The many random questions.
You got me thinking. I'm like, wait a minute. What?
But then would they be sticky? Would she not be like walking across the floor?
I mean, they have sticky silk and not sticky silk, though. Would they just be like? Would she just be like really, like? Now I'm mentioning Lolth's lair with just gentle, like lacy silk wafting curtains. Just oh look, the silk sheets and the silk this.
Okay, we have a question from Don in chat. What are some of your favorite examples of World Anvil projects that you would point new users to?
Ooh, that is a good question. There are some amazing projects on there. And I can say that there are some bigger publishers like Troll Games who are now adopting World Anvil as a way to disseminate their information. And Counter RP, obviously, you should go and check out their stuff when it comes up on World Anvil. It will be awesome. As for worlds that are already on there, there is a very big science fantasy world, if you're into science fantasy, called Ethnis. It is fantastic. It is really, really detailed, fantastic concept in there. And there's an RPG system in that as well. So you can see how an RPG system is implemented, and it's their own RPG system within World Anvil as well. So that's a big recommend. The world of Swordsfall, in terms of beauty, and I don't know if you guys saw that Kickstarter came out that made hundreds of thousands of dollars, but the Swordsfall Kickstarter is friggin' beautiful. That's all on there as well. You can go to worldanvil.com and you'll find Swordfall. Those are two of the really big worlds. One of my personal favorites is one called Lethea, which is just beautiful, by a writer called Delian. If you are in our Discord, just go find Delian and say, let me see your world, and he will. It's lovely. Won lots and lots of prizes in our recent world building competition. But yeah, you can just fall over good stuff when you go onto World Anvil. If you want to see some really good articles, I suggest you check out worldanvil.com/worldember, follow through to the World Ember page, which was our recent month-long world building competition. We do 2 of these a year. We give away thousands of dollars of prizes. We love it. And as part of that, we do these special categories, right? And they are always absolutely phenomenal world building articles. They are entered into competitions. The top 10 will be listed on that page. You can go and check them out from each kind of category. There's items, there's traditions, there's species and ethnicities and characters and plots and everything that you can imagine. That is some really first-class world building. That is a great place to find some new projects and some beautiful projects on World Anvil that will get you inspired. And as always, go to our Discord and ask people, what are your favorite worlds? Because people read each other's stuff, they critique each other's stuff, they help each other world build, and we all know each other on there. We're 15,000 people, but you know, we keep an eye on each other, we know each other. So yeah, you'll find amazing authors there too.
All right, so we talked about top-down building, kind of hopping topics here a little bit, but just thinking about Lol Socks has led me to this. What's the strangest details that you like to include in your worlds? For example, I am a player in D&D. When I play D&D, I always play divine characters, and I like to add gods, small gods to pantheons. That's one of my favorite little hobbies. It's coming up with small gods. I know there are other writers who fixate on food. They really like to know, you know, specialty dishes and what they smell like and what they taste like and what strange ingredients are in them, which is amazing to me. What's like something that you like writing about? There's something like that. It's a small detail that maybe isn't even noticed, but you usually find inspiration in.
I love world building food because I write hungry, never write hungry. It's like never going to the supermarket hungry. You never write hungry. You just I swear that's why George R.R. Martin's books are full of food, because he writes before lunch. Like this is just a guess. I have no idea for sure, but yeah, the big food scenes in there. I think that's just hunger calling. I love taking a character, giving them a weird hobby, and writing weird crap about it. I'm trying not to swear, sorry. I'm writing weird things about it in the world. So if they like carpentry, I will create loads of weird trees and strange knives that they can use, or I'll create a bizarre game that they can make the pieces of, or something like that. So I like to take a character that I like, give them a weird hobby, and dive on in there, because I feel like that's something that's very tangible in world building. Again, I'm anti-world builder's disease. I like building things I can use. But that's just, it just gives those crunchy little details that feel so immersive, feel so real. So yeah, weird hobbies and their accoutrements. That's where I'm at on that.
What about you, Lindy?
So as a player, quirks. I like to give characters quirks, but for world building, architecture and the layout of places. I don't know if this is just my love of construction and restoration of houses coming in, or what. That's probably what it is. But I'll get into descriptions. I'll picture it. I refrain from being like, yes, and the 8-inch baseboards with the trim. So I keep that inside. But I'll definitely make a note of like how high the ceilings are, what kind of materials they're made out of, the stone, brick, wood, tile, etc. And just basically a lot of house details. Sometimes scenery, but I don't have as much experience with that, so it's definitely a lot of house stuff. Sometimes food. If it's like an inn, there's a menu, but...
I remember growing up, I was always writing things, but it was actually my mom who gave me one of my favorite pieces of writing advice, which is remember all of the senses. And people have framed it as different things, like the Hotel California rule, where basically you add in a detail from each of the senses when you describe a place. So how it smells, how it sounds, what you can, touch, all of those sort of things. Taste is a little bit weird, but sometimes you can taste the air, it happens. I've been to London. Sometimes you can taste the air.
Taste the air.
But that's one of my favorite things, and I find like that ties into world building. But in session 0, that's another exercise you can do. Is you can ask when you're introducing a new character, an NPC, ask for 5 things about them to do with the different senses you have. What's your feeling when you meet this person? Sorry, Jenny, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say that I did a series called Immersive World Building on YouTube, and this is exactly what I'm keying into, is how to make your world building immersive using those 5 and more senses. So I'm really, really happy. I feel sort of vindicated that you brought that up.
Let me see. I just saw a question. JRC Roller asks, what details do you think it's okay to leave out or leave fuzzy for world or for characters? That's a good question. I think in part it depends on what your genre is, or what your setting is, and then what the focus of your players are. Because if the players don't care about the food at the feast, sometimes it's okay just to tell them there's a feast. But if they're someone like us who's food orientated, we want to know about the donuts on the table.
Very food motivated.
That would be my advice.
I feel like these kinds of details in TTRPG games, those are the details that you build on the fly. Like, you've created your structure, you basically know where you're going. Again, if you're me, you know your tone, you know your genre, so you know if it's a gritty tone, you know things are going to be horrible. Whatever senses you're talking about, it's going to be mold and grey. That's your palette. If it's a bright, heroic fantasy world, you're talking red and gold and honey and sunshine, right? Sure. So once you have those, once you have that scope, you build the details of what people are interested in, right? If your players are asking about it, well, suddenly there's details. It's one of those weird things where the place that you're looking is the place in focus and everything else is fuzzy. And I feel like for TTRPG world building especially, that's the way to go. Don't try and free build everything, but where you can, improvise what they're curious about, because that's going to lead where the world building goes. That's going to lead the story. That's how it's supposed to be, you know.
100%. Stitch 164 is talking about how they have a session 0 for Stars Without Numbers coming up. They've got skeletons of their planets, but their plan is to let the players build the worlds. And do we have any experience with that? I let my players build the worlds all the time. I prefer the players to do it, to be honest. It's less work for me. And I think we've kind of discussed that we enjoy that collaboration here, and I think it's something I would almost be put off if it wasn't part of the games I'm playing. I don't think I could play a game where the GM sits down and they are the keeper of all the answers, and I couldn't, like, I struggle with modules now because I am so used to creating and collaborating with everyone around the table and being like, oh, what if there's this thing that it's like, well, that's not in my book. I don't know how to do this, which is a fine and fair response. If you're, you know, trying to get through Curse of Strahd, for example, that detail's not in this book. I don't know what to do with that, Charlie. Can we please go back to stabbing the vampire? But what do you feel? Do you feel it's one of those time and place things? Do you think it's only for some people, or has it ever been a disaster? Does anyone have a disaster story of letting their players decide something?
No, but yes, and those are the tools that you need. So if they build something that is so world-breaking, like, by the way, my left foot is a dragon called George who breathes glass. No, but you've met a dragon called George who breathes glass. You know he exists in the world. He's not your left foot. That I don't even know what to do with that. But no, there is one in the world. Or yes, and let's ameliorate that. So this was a dream that you had, right? You are convinced of this. You believe this to be true. It's not true. How could it be? It breaks the world. But you believe that it is true, and that is integral to your character. So those are the tools that I use when I let my players build. Is yes and fine, or yes and let's impose some restrictions so we don't pull everything apart. Because when you give players freedom, they will see how far you're going to let them take it. And that is completely reasonable. That is a human response. And that's why yes and no but are such useful tools. You're welcome.
So for me, specifically with this question, with the stars that number, they're going to be the skeletons of the planets available to them. One of the best suggestions I have for this is there's this game called Ryutama. It is a fantastic game. And every town that you go into it with, we sit down and we create it at the end of the session. We'll play the game, and at the end of the session, before our next game, we'll make the next town. So there's just a series of steps, it's like a checklist. You just go down. There's town name. Y'all pick a name for the town. You choose the population. Because if it's a town, it's village, town, city, or large city, and it gives population variance. For planets, it would be, is it sparsely populated? Is it huge? Is it covered by city? You know, that kind of thing. Ruler or representative, what kind of government? It sounds like you already have that figured out, though, with factions and stuff. But environments, is it a city deep in a windy valley? Is it a town in a wispy wood? A representative building or buildings or things like that, like there's a white castle on top of a cliff you notice when you come in, or there's a big windmill, or all of the town doors are painted red. So you pick a representative look for each of these things. Specialty goods, do they specialize in sheep, weapons, farming? What's their trade? Towns or planets in this case, sight or smell, and for Ryutama we also do town threats. What's a problem that these people on this planet or this town is having? And every time we play, we have our fun with the session, and then we get all excited to create the next town that we get to explore. And if we go around a bit and we come back to a town, we can see how it's changed since the last time, and that's just a really good way to kind of go down it in a what's the word I'm looking for? With like a templated way for the players and the DM to sit down and go, okay, so here's the things we need. And if you want to throw out other stuff too, you can definitely do that, but it makes sure you're not really having any gaps and everyone feels like they, contributed something to it, and it's a lot of fun.
This ties into my last kind of thing about Session Zeros, is that Session Zeros to me aren't for just the start of the campaign. Ryutama, you see Session Zeros kind of happening at the end of each game in a way, and games like Cult, where you review your goals to see how your character is progressing, and things like that. I love that, and I've been introducing that. As I said before, I like ripping things from other games and just shoving them in the games I'm playing. I've been introducing that kind of thing to A Song of Ice and Fire. Every game, I have my players set actionable agendas. Has to be actionable, so these are short-term goals that are building towards their larger-term goals. At the end of the game, we review. Their goals may have completely changed. They may have not accomplished them. They may have accomplished them. But it's a way for me to understand what the players want to pursue that session and are continuing to want to pursue as their arcs go. So when I'm writing the next session, I can be like, okay, so we've changed where Allegra's going. Or, you know, that sort of thing. And so that's my big session 0 thing, is it's a session 0. You can slot that 0 in anywhere.
That's really cool. I'm a big proponent of player interviews, but they shouldn't sound like interviews. So it shouldn't be like, what was your favorite part of the session? Tell me now. Yeah, so essentially just casually asking your players, or not so casually, depends on the group, depends on who you are, how they're finding things. What they think is going to happen next is always a great indicator of where you can be going in this kind of thing. I don't play formally as a GM. I don't play on stream as a GM. I play around my table as a GM. So it's a different experience. But yeah, I'm a big proponent of trying to get information from the players about what they think is going to happen, taking notes on what they really enjoyed and this kind of stuff, because that is so helpful. And in a way, that is another session 0. So if you're crafty, you can do it as a kind of, oh yeah, so curious what's going to happen next session with X character, and then the players will just pile on, right? Or you can do it more formal, or you can ask them what they're enjoying, you can get them to do little questionnaires if it's that kind of group. But yeah, I think it's a really great way not only to make sure that the story's going the right way, the characters are going the right way, but to make sure that the players are still enjoying things and that you are giving them what they want, which is essentially, you know, for a fun game around a table, that is the job of the GM. They can do the greatest accents or the most terrible accents. As long as everybody's having fun, you've won. Congratulations. So yeah, like the little interviews, it's going to be really useful for that.
So our last question today, because we are a little bit over time, and I am going to be opening up that last giveaway. So if you're interested in the Strange New Worlds PDF, so the Star Trek Adventures, you're not going to get the book, you're going to get the PDF, but I have a book, so I'm going to wave it at you. Look in chat, it's going to be exclamation mark loot. But the last question comes from Kai Hawkeye. For someone just starting to DM, do you recommend doing your own world building or using an existing one from WotC or others? I would say whether you end up doing your own or running a pre-existing world, I would go and look at how other world builders have built a world. I learned so much from reading through the Adventures in Middle-earth campaigns in how to write a D&D campaign, how to set up episodes, how to set up encounters, just from reading through how they approached it. And playing a lot of games helps, but actually going and looking how someone has formally structured a book to give to someone else to run a game really helped me in understanding how to build a game. A lot of it went out the window very rapidly, as it tends to do, but that would be my advice, is whether you decide to end up running your own world because you know exactly what you want, or you end up running a campaign, go and look at lots of them. Look at different systems and see what speaks to you and informs you as a player, because a GM is a player. You just have a slightly different rule set usually to work with. How do you feel, Janet?
I don't have my own answer. That's my answer. That's exactly my answer. So I have never played a written adventure. I never have, but I have read a lot of them, and I started to read them before I started to DM. The reason that I did that is exactly what Charlie just said, that astute lady over there, which is that basically you need to know how these things are put together before you can start making your own and experimenting and, you know, tweaking with the pieces. You need to know what one looks like and what a few look like in different styles, and then you can make your own adventure. And it might be as simple as, okay, well, they used kobolds, but I'm going to use giant flaming platypuses, for example. Or it might be as complex as, I want a completely different structure, I want a completely different kind of story, but I've seen what the ingredients are. So yeah, absolutely. I think running your own world is easier than running a module because you don't have to remember stuff. And when you do have to remember stuff, it's sort of well down. So basically, like, you make up your own stuff, right? So and you're completely free to make that stuff up. You don't have to refer back to a book, and nobody can say that you are wrong because it's your world, right? So they can't turn around and say, but I read in the module that actually Strahd is not supposed to be a platypus. Well, surprise, he's a platypus. And now I want a vampire platypus in my world. But you know what I mean? Like, you can use your own stuff, you can use your own ideas, and that is easier for me. But yeah, getting that information, getting those ingredients, and understanding how you can put them together in different ways is so valuable. And there are loads of great adventures out there that are just fun to read.
Yeah, reading a lot of pre-written adventures is a good way to get a feel for it, or even settings, like just reading a setting book to see how they have it laid out and that kind of thing is great. One other thing that came to mind while we were talking about this, it's not quite related to the question, but stars and wishes is something I do at the end of some of my campaigns, where everyone says what their stars are, what their favorite moment or moments of the game session was, and wishes, what they would like to see happen in the future, whether it be near future, far future. If it's just something small as, oh, I'd like to have a small side scene with so-and-so next week, or, oh, I'd like to do this. It helps the GM keep that in mind, helps the other players keep that in mind, and it's a good way to kind of also build the world. Like, oh, I'd really like it if this was incorporated into the world in this kind of way. So, stars and wishes, and lets the DM see what they like, have already liked, and what they want to see more of. So
I love that. Is that your invention, or is that something
it's not my invention? It was stolen from someone, I don't know who, but we use it at the end of our Ryutama games and a couple other games that I've played in. We've done stars and wishes, some D&D games even.
Nice.
There are similar ones. There's one called, I think, Petals and Thorns. One, like, Petals is, what's your favorite part, and then Thorns is something you'd wish you'd done differently or had gone differently. I think that one works better off of stream because it's more of a private conversation to be had.
We usually do those after stream. I don't think I've ever done it on stream for the stars and wishes because it's a little bit more out of character. It's like a nice wind down.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting after a session, I wish I'd made a different choice, or I wish this had gone slightly differently, because the thing that some people, I think, forget occasionally about TTRPG is you can retcon things. You have ultimate power with your group to change this world on a dime. I'm not saying do it for fickle reasons or do it because you lost a battle. Sometimes losing a battle is the most interesting thing that could have happened. But if in your gut you have that deep regret and it's going to add dread, it's going to add anxiety, or, it's going to stop you from enjoying the game, have the conversation. Can we change this a little bit? And reflect on that, because that's okay. We talk a lot about canon and it's established, but it's all made up. At the end of the day, everything you are playing is all made up. And that's why it's fun. In my opinion. I should preface this with, in my opinion.
Hey, this is a talk show. It's all about opinion. But no, hard agree on that. Absolutely. If you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong. That's where I'm at. So if it's causing you grief, change it. It's made-uppy. You can do that. It's great.
Imagination.
Oh.
Alright. Well, I'm super excited. I want to go and work on my World Anvil. I'm not going to lie. I've been thinking a lot about my Monday session. But before I go and do that, I would like to say a massive thank you to Janet for spending her evening with us here tonight, the last part of her day. I hope you enjoyed stopping by. It's been such a pleasure to have you and to talk about World Anvil and all of this stuff.
It's been so fun chatting with you. Thank you for having me. Gosh, I could have gone on for another hour. I probably shouldn't. Thank you for having me anyway.
It's very easy to do, and I often do want to do it, but time ticks on, as they say. Please do go and check out World Anvil, worldanvil.com, and I will try and get a link to their Discord to share with you over on the Encounter Roleplay Twitter, so if you want to go and join that amazing community, that will be available there. And I'll also put a link into our Discord as well, so the links will be everywhere for you.
If you hop onto worldanvil.com/Discord, you will get there. It's very easy.
There we go. Organized. I love it. Where else can we find you on the internet, Janet? Where can we find your projects?
Well, you can find my ridiculous face at youtube.com/worldanvil, where I do like a world building podcast. I get university professors and world building professors and experts in the field of Kickstarters and Patreons and TTRPGs and professional writers and self-publishing gurus and all of that good stuff. They all come talk to me on my live stream, which goes live at 7 o'clock p.m. GMT, that's British time, on a Sunday, and then all goes onto the YouTube channel. So if you want to catch up on all that good stuff, you can go to the YouTube channel. We have world-building inspiration, we have world level tutorials, we got the good stuff. And if you want to learn about the rest of my life, which is largely cats and me waiting for video drivers to download, you can do that at JD_Blythe on Twitter, which is where I am me on the internet, rather than Janet from World Anvil on the internet, which is almost the same person, but I'm slightly more ridiculous. That's myself, I guess. I don't take things too seriously. Yeah.
I heard cats and I was sold.
Yeah, that's what we do. We have actually, I have to shut them out when I do streams like this, because my green screen is just a sheet nailed to the wall, and they love to drag it down. And more than once I've been in a live stream where the entire of the facade has disappeared, and it's like the world is ending behind me. I was in this live stream with this like eminent professor. She's like the emeritus professor of archaeology, classics, and ancient history. And my green screen fell down. Oh my god! And she kept this amazing poker face, and then I kept this poker face, and then at the break, I just freaked the hell out. It was glorious. It's great. Live streams, guys.
Woo!
Don is suggesting Cats, Call of Cthulhu, the musical.
Yes.
I approve. Actually, I've just remembered one tiny thing that I've started ripping from another game. Good Society has a thing called monologue tokens, where once per game you can give a token to another player and get them to monologue. They can describe, or they could actually act it out, and they share what their character is thinking, what's kind of going on in their head, which is something you don't always get to see. And I really like that, and I've started adding that in, and it's a really great way for players to actually be paying close attention to what's going on to the other characters, because they're giving you a token because they want to know, and you know that's where the juicy fruits hide. So just a sudden thought, because someone mentioned investing in other people's characters. Yeah, top tip: go and steal everything from everyone else and put it together into a beautiful homebrew. Lindy, speaking of beautiful.
Oh, shucks. Yeah, you can find me online at LaughLoveLindy. It's right down here. It's right here for you. Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, pretty much any social media. That's where I'm at because nobody else had it. Ha. And I play and GM a lot of tabletop RPGs. Less so this weekend for the most part because I will be traveling. However, definitely check out Roll20's channel this Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, that sounds right. 4 p.m. Eastern for a Valentine's Day Call of Cthulhu one shot. So it's going to be, if you like puns and you like Eldritch Horror and you like to see me tormenting people, you should check it out. We've got some great players playing. We've got Kiana, we've got TK, we've got Critical Bard. It's going to be a fun group. I'm very excited about it. And aside from that, check out a podcast I'm on that's really short, sweet, to the point, Tales from a Hollow World. It's only 25 to 30 minutes, but you get to see some really cool, world building, I'd say. It's very short and sweet. It's almost audio drama-esque, but the world is very interesting, and we're learning about it while you guys learn about it, so it's very exciting. You should check it out. It's good.
Awesome. And also be sure to come by tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, which is 9 p.m. UK. I'll do the conversions. I could do it. For Hollow running Death's Curios, which is our Unhallowed Metropolis game. Normally Lindy would be there, but Lindy's traveling tomorrow. But the rest of the cast are there, and the investigations continue into this Victoriana Gothic setting with vampires, zombies, and chicken boys. Cooper.
I love Cooper.
Which is my favorite thing to say. Cooper.
Cooper, my chicken boy.
And be sure to come by Friday when we have that double bill premiere for you. We will be your Valentine. We will give you the delights of boldly going and the shoulder to hide behind as we unveil the haunting of Seawall Orphanage. That's 3 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Eastern respectively, or 8 p.m. UK and 11 p.m. UK respectively. So until we see you, run Session Zeros, check out World Anvil, build worlds and share them with friends. try not to roll too many nat ones because we want to be there laughing when you do. Good night, everybody.